That anecdote about how it all started is like, I love that one. Just sitting in Corona on top of a mountain in Yugawada, not knowing what to do, and having just started a Akiya business, and I heard them talking about, oh my God, what is this Akiya stuff? And but you used to like raise your hand, I think is what you did on Clubhouse. Is that how you got? Yeah, and I was like, hey guys, I've got something to say. So yeah, I'm Matt Ketchum. That's me in Gunma. There we go.
I think the other Matt wants you to stay on that side of the
room. Right on. I tend to wander and meander. Yeah, so I'm Matt Ketchum. I run AkiyaZ.io. And a number of other things. Akiya, it's a weird one. As Ziv mentioned, and I was just kind of riffing on a little bit, it started basically right before Corona. And I had for years been, kind of long story, but make it real short. So I also am a musician and do a lot of databasing stuff. And so I had actually made a methodology for understanding and analyzing the data behind Japanese underground heavy metal. And when the first when the first Akiya stories started coming out, I think it was like 2016 or so, I was looking at these stories thinking, geez, like none of these numbers make any sense. What's going on here? I can't read into any of it. And it clicked in my head that, oh my God, the same way that I've analyzed underground heavy metal in Japan seems to be the way to analyze Akiya. This is very interesting. And that's kind of how I started getting into it. And then coronavirus happened. And as luck frequently does, I was in the right position at the right time. That a lot of people living in Tokyo said, oh my God, get me out of the city. I don't know what to do. And I said, hey, $60,000 and maybe we can get you to Saitama or Gunma. So yeah, that's how that started. I also do a lot of digital infrastructure consulting, mostly for small and medium-sized businesses in Japan, but also over in the States as well. That's web design, web development, databasing, payment structure, blah, 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 blah. The things that you want to run a business. But I also do a lot of like adventuring and stuff, and that's kind of my point. Actually, I think it's always my point, is that we've got a lot of speakers who have a lot of really good numbers and data and experience, and it's very good, but also very analytical, and I kind of try to come in and say, hey, here's this cool thing that you can do with all that data that they just gave you. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. And a little bit more, but let's get to it. So for me, the appeal and promise even, or at least the attractiveness of not just Akiya, but like where they exist, what they represent, what they can be used for, is, well, it's fascinating. I kind of can't stop thinking about it. It's not just that you've got property tends to be like very strictly defined in the minds of your average person. So like a house is a house. What is a house? Well, it's probably got 2 floors. It's maybe between like 80 and 100, or I'm sorry, an apartment for a family is like between 80 and 120 square meters. What's a family? Well, usually it's like a 4-person unit or something like that. And so you've got like the tendency to pretty strictly define what a given type of property is. So, you know, a house is this, and a restaurant is that, and, you know, whatever is whatever. It doesn't tend to change very much. And those are some of the things that I pursue pretty actively. And actually, this t-shirt has a story behind that, which is very relevant, and I'll get to it in a moment. So that's the thing that I work with. It's not necessarily like financial investment. It's usually, I always call it lifestyle investment. And there's a huge difference between the two. I think both are viable, certainly. But you have to understand what it is you're doing. If you're going into something and expecting X, but you get Y, then understandably you're probably going to like not be happy with that result. And so I support the lifestyle side of things, which is a much more kind of like frontier approach to investment in property, as well as, again, lifestyle in Japan. This is kind of the typical stuff that you look at when you're investing. Usually it's a financial investment, right? So you're expecting returns, you know, there's the banks and the loans and liquidity and all of these things that you should definitely be thinking about, especially if it's a financial investment and you want returns. That's kind of the name of the game. If you don't do that, you're not doing a very good job. which again is kind of what I mean, I touch, but that's not kind of my forte. This is more what I do. And it definitely has a chiholsolse or rejuvenation. Rural rejuvenation is a term that Ziv threw my way a few weeks ago, I think, that I still think is absolutely the best way to refer to it. And so it's a lot of things though, right? It's relatively complex and relatively like nebulous, and also there's like, for lack of a better word, a good deal of emotion. Like, what do you like? You know, so you're not, if you don't like something, you're not going to invest in it. And so what I do with a lot of my, all of my clients, a big part of it is figuring out outside of the whole finance, realm, like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? If you go down this path, what is the ideal result for kind of your life that you want? And it's surprisingly difficult, more so than one would imagine, myself included, of, well, gee whiz, you know, you're going into this, I figured you already like knew what you were looking for. And most of the time, it's either no, they haven't really, it's kind of been a daydream, so it's not like particularly well fleshed out, or it's actually like completely misaligned with reality. And that's part of my job, because again, if we're not thinking about the finance side of things, but thinking about like the lifestyle result, if you go and do something, then, you know, if you buy, I always say, like, if you buy your dream house, but you're surrounded by jerks, then you didn't do a very good job of actually understanding the environment, not just the property, but kind of the ecosystem that you want to live in. So being able to identify what that is, especially from a social point of view, is very difficult because, as we all know, Japan has not, progressed, I guess, as much as one would hope in terms of like digitization. And so being able to figure out, oh, you said you wanted X, Y, and Z. Where is that? How do we find it? There's a whole bunch of data triangulation and stuff that has to happen because a lot of stuff is either just not digitized. So that means that I have to go hunt it down to actually prove whether or not the thing that we're looking for exists. But even if it is digitized, it tends to be really, really dirty. And so that needs to be cleaned, structured, and then further analyzed. So that's a large part of kind of where my fees come in. Yeah, the Pathfinder. I feel like this is maybe a little bit overworded, not like sheeple or something like that. But I mean, the fact is, though, again, with the finance side of, like with financial investments, yeah, you should probably be looking at what works and then do that and iterate on it in order to get the best returns. Like, again, that's the name of the game. But the Pathfinder is what I think there's absolutely that type of, standard practice or best practice even. Financial investment, absolutely necessary. I'm not saying at all, let's get rid of that or anything. But in addition to that, what I try to support is kind of, those people with a twinkle in their eye and extra buck in their pocket that are saying, oh man, I love mountain climbing. Like, let's explore what I can do via property with, my favorite hobby. And I think that that's how you break new markets, which, number one, provided you're successful at breaking open a new market, admittedly a very difficult thing to do. But if you are, the market share that you stand to inherit or own is far superior and greater than what you would in more traditional markets. From a more, humanitarian, let's say, point of view is, look, Tokyo's doing pretty good. Everywhere else, not so much. And so if you're going to bother throwing money at any type of investment, I always think it's relatively interesting to at least consider, okay, here's the Tokyo standard model that we could do and is very viable. But what if we did that other thing over there out in Gunma that seems kind of crazy? And so being able to determine what your different avenues are depending on what your needs and desires are is, again, something I try to encourage in people. And so that is why I do a whole lot of traveling around Japan, very rural areas. This is over in Fukui on the Sea of Japan, because you can't pursue what you don't know exists. And oftentimes it's very difficult to pursue or even think it's a good idea to go out and discover. And again, that's I think that's a pretty normal and honestly good thing. It's pretty safe to do. But if everybody does that, then nobody knows what they don't know. right? And so part of my job in traveling to Japan with clients and doing visitations and stuff is to also understand the geography, the cultures, the opportunities, of course, both in business and lifestyle, and really the things that exist, but we don't know because nobody's ever bothered telling us, which is a pretty kind of tautological statement. Yeah, and so we're going to talk about a few spots that I think are neat. I think. Not yet. Whatever. There we go. The goat. Greatest of all time. This is a fun project. So those of you who know me probably are aware that I have a kind of like a long-standing relationship with the town of Yugawara. The goats have been a part of my story for probably 7 years now, something like that. But this is a neat one, in that I just came last week and I've made we're doing like promotional videos and stuff right now. But in addition to Akiya, which tend to be houses, there's also Akichi. And often enough, people ask probably all of us in the industry about farmland. And well, if I buy it, can I do anything with it? And if I can do something with it, can I sell that produce? And it gets pretty nebulous pretty quickly, honestly speaking. I kind of can't recommend it for purchase. However, in Yugawara, what we've been doing there for, like 7 years or so now, in fact, you can rent goats to eat the grass on your overgrown land. That's a business that started down there. But what we've been doing is basically putting together groups of people who are interested in learning about agriculture and rural businesses and just like rural overnight weekend-ish experiences, as well as wellness and like health and exercise. Sounds kind of crazy, but for a fee, you can go work on a farm for a weekend. And if you sell it as, hey, I need your hard labor, can you pay me to give you your hard labor? That one doesn't sell very well. But if you do frame it in get some exercise, get your hands dirty, there's fresh air, you get to learn, meet new people from all over the world, and you're outside of Tokyo, and it's relaxing, and all that stuff, it actually ends up becoming kind of like a wellness retreat. So we're on our 5th farm down there. Currently we only have 2 goats, something like 40 chickens, and that's about it. But it's like 2,000 by 2,000 square meters, the plot of land that we're working on, that we just started tilling last weekend. So that's like neat. Again, is it like the best financial? I mean, you don't want to lose money, right? But so long as you can find, and this is about leveraging existing assets which are owned by like not you. There's no purchase involved here. But a lot of those owners, especially in rural Japan, are 80 plus years old, single. They don't have family. They own 9 hectares of land or something that is a farm, but they're one person and a dog, and they can't get very much done. And so it overgrows, and it becomes basically an eyesore. Once that happens, then the land value goes down because you've got to do something about all this overgrown stuff. The city does worse off, and it's really kind of a vicious cycle. And so being able to actually monetize people to get out, leave the city, get some exercise and fresh air while also kind of beautifying rural areas, in this case, Yugawara. Anybody can do wherever they want. It's kind of like a novel and neat thing, and I know I've certainly gained quite a bit from it. Recently, I have a client down in does anybody know where the Goto Islands are? Okay, so they're west of Nagasaki. I didn't know they existed either. In fact, I saw Ziv, where'd he go, recently because I had to travel here. This one's very extreme. No lie, no joke. To get there, so the owner has property. It's about, I think, 0.897 acres of land with a property, a building on it. The building is, if you want to keep it, okay, whatever, but my honest recommendation would be just demolish it. But yeah, so to get there, let's see, I had to fly down to Fukuoka. From Fukuoka, I took a 7.5-hour overnight ferry directly to this island, which is the 3rd in the chain. We did the whole thing, media production, documentation, blah, 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 blah. Then on the way back, had to take the first ferry, 1.5 hours to Fukueshima, transfer to another ferry that was a 3-hour ferry over to Nagasaki, and then from Nagasaki Airport, travel back to Tokyo. That's a major pain in the butt to get there, right? This one definitely is not for like your average person. That being said, this is an island, by the way, of 1,700 people. They killed buses 3 years ago. There is no public transport whatsoever, minus the ferries. And despite that, I got really excited when the client first came to me just saying, hey, I need some help. You know, how can we work together? I was like, oh my God, there's a place that I've never heard of. I didn't even know it existed. Are there dinosaurs there? What is this? But then I saw, straight up, this was like a really deep and emotional and meaningful experience for me. Because I'd actually not seen like that level of commitment to an area before. And I still kind of can't put it in words, but like, make no mistake, it very much left a mark somewhere on my body. But interestingly enough, despite the fact that there's no public transportation, there's only 1,700 people. I imagine the median age is probably somewhere around 82. You would think like, okay, not much is happening there. There are fully 3 other people that are opening up guest houses in Minkan there, coming from mainland Nagasaki. And if you remember that trip that I took, it's like not the easiest place to get to. And despite that, there's 3 other people who are already have purchased Akiya there, are in the process of renovating it and creating business. Of course, one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is the digital infrastructure aspect of it, not necessarily the electricity and the connectivity, because actually, what is it, Docomo, I believe, has like an access point right next to it. So there's water, there's electricity, there's internet, there's stuff like that. But as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, I do a lot of digital infrastructure advisory. So it's one thing to purchase something, renovate it, make it all nice and attractive. It's another thing if you're not visible, right? And so one thing that I really encourage anybody using this kind of as an example is make sure you're online well. Because if you're not, all that effort, all that money, all that, you know, sweat, blood, and tears and whatnot can go to waste if you get to the starting line, but then you don't go past it. And so this is a really encouraging area to me. Again, I do consider it a very extreme example, so not for everybody, but even in this place, which straight up is kind of like the edge of the earth to me, even in this place, there's 3 people, younger too, in their 20s, who have purchased this land and are doing these renovations, Japanese folks. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise to me, and I thought it was like a really good kind of example of, well, I don't know, doing wacky stuff. Oh, that's the house. And this is a helicopter. Actually, it was a helicopter pad back in the day. Yeah, so that's the house. And then the mountainside is all the land. Then there's this other one. This is a 250 room, 16-story hotel in Upper Izu, which, crazily enough, is being maintained, is operational. The electricity works, the onsen works. I've been in the elevator. There's a rooftop restaurant up there that still has like a stocked bar from 13 years ago, because for 13 years, this thing has not been being used, even though it could be. I've met the owner. They took me around. It's pretty clean. Well, I mean, literally there's like, custodians and groundskeepers who are employed and getting paid to do the job of keeping this thing clean, despite the fact that it generates nothing but loss. So that one's a little bit curious. Since last year, I met the owner of this as well as the representative agent, the seller's agent. And again, this is another extreme example that I'm kind of trying to point out. This is 3.6 oku, I believe. I can give that price. The other one is a little bit different. Again, very extreme example. Your average person is not going to say, oh boy, give me that 250 rooms. Like, I really want that. But like, it's an available thing. And honestly, the discussions that we're having right now is not, let's make that hotel operational. It's, oh, you know what? On the 16th floor, you've got that restaurant. And then down on the 15th, there's like 4 or so rooms that we might be able to just rent out as like telework spaces. Things like that. So it's not just a hotel is a hotel is a hotel is a hotel. It's that space that happens to look it's been called a hotel previously, but there's other kind of uses for it. Also, it's got 2 separate restaurants in the bottom with like 3 mini kitchens in it as well. That is just, yeah, I mean, kind of curious. More, apparently there was a pool here, but that tree grew, so that was many years ago there was a pool. I don't know why they told me that. And so yeah, those are 2 like mega extreme examples of island that nobody has ever heard of and takes an airplane and a ferry basically a full day to get to, or a gigantic hotel. But there's everything in between, right? And so I think those are good examples for like kind of stoking the imagination. But the fact is, you don't need to do either of those things to actually get like not just a good property on your hands, but also start thinking of and imagining and kind of sketching out what a unique and unique kind of use case for whatever it is that you're going after. Another one of my favorite stories, we were talking last night, I do a lot with like wild game meat. There's 3 sisters in the Atami area that they bought an Akiya. That was a real junker. Didn't need to live there though because they're butchers. And they discovered that the local area of Atami and Yugawara all the time really, pays local hunters to shoot the pests, which tends to be wild boar and deer. But all they were doing was incentivizing the kill. So they had a bunch of carcasses that presumably were just like rotting or something. And so the butcher sisters figured that basically there's free meat, free product for them to receive from the local government that's already being paid for, that they can just process into actual steaks and spare ribs and things like that. So they did that, I think 5 years ago. Within I believe it was 2 years of opening, they already got acquired by, there's a company, a major company, has a besso down there, and so they got to know each other, and so that was like a really great success story. I can't imagine they spent more than like, I don't know, maybe $2 million on the thing that they bought, but they don't need to live in it, they just need a processing facility, right? Actually in the same area too, somebody bought, this is a tough one, somebody bought an abandoned fish processing facility. Yeah, but they made a brewery with it and are now actually pretty successful too. And so that's an excellent example too of just like, oh boy, there's a stinky used fish processing facility. Give me that one. To live in, hell no, right? But if you just need to put some brewing machinery and stuff in there, then it works pretty well. So imagination, everybody think outside of the box, be creative, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, okay, so there's the beer thing and whatnot, but like really being able to think about like, oh, what can I even do in this place? Like, I mean, it totally depends, but there's hiking and waterfalls, and I'm kind of rambling now, and I think I might be done, but yeah, here's some nice pictures of nature. Where am I going with this? Yeah, so this is where I'm going. Actually, I didn't even mean to take this great picture, but like this is out in Yamanashi, right near Fujino area. Uenohara, that's where that is. Oh, but I didn't tell you about the t-shirt. So also there in Nagano, there's a rock and roll Buddhist temple. And it turns out that the head priest of that temple is good friends with the band that my band plays with. And long story short, we ended up inviting over this band Earthless from San Diego to go play on top of a mountain rural mountain in Nagano we had like all these like torches and fire. It was awesome. It was super cool. But I mean, that's another thing too. Like, what's this temple doing here?
Watch your mouth. We've got people complaining about that.
Oh, really? Already? What did I say? But yeah, so this is basically the end of the presentation. And if you want to go discuss doing cool stuff, definitely talk to me. And two, since I do a lot of fermentation, I also brought not only kombucha and ginger, non-alcoholic ginger beer that I ferment, made with local produce, but I also collect sea salt from around various cities and towns in Japan and make lacto-fermented pickles with those too. And so because it's about to be lunchtime, if you want to try the flavors of fermented Japan, come over to me and I'll give you a taste.
The hot sauce in your swag bags is also.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Good thing.
We will open for questions. Raise your hands if you have any questions for Matt. But yes, he's also going to be in the breakout room and all the chill out spaces throughout the day. So do we have any questions? Any hands in the room? Going once? Going...
Right here.
Oh, sorry.
Have you ever come across an environment where maybe out in rural Japan you have a community of folks who don't fit so well in societies, folks who maybe have mental health diseases and so forth, where they can live together and maybe do some farming, maybe do some, have a collaborative community?
That's actually a really excellent question. That's super deep, and I deal with or work with it in various forms. So basically you're talking about like communities, right? Then there's various different types. One, I know a bunch of them. I feel like that's a concept that is still kind of in the midst of finding out what it is. And specifically, this is actually one reason, this is the reason I'm really, really bullish on ryokan, is these communities tend to buy usually it's one large house. So it's got multiple bedrooms and things like that. But it's still very close quarters living. It's kind of like, have you ever watched reality TV? And you know how when you get a bunch of people living together in close quarters, it eventually devolves into terribleness? That happens pretty frequently. So the communities that I've seen that are, in fact, this is one of them out in Uenohara, are more farmy. There's a property over there, there's a property over there. The ryokan thing is nice because it's relatively condensed, but it still has separate kind of units and a little bit of space in it. So I've seen that, but emotional politics of just having a lot of people live together is something that very much needs to be explored further in order to determine, probably community by community, depending on the needs of said community, how that works. But it's definite, I've worked with a number of those. That's very much a top of mind kind of conversation that's happening right now. So I'd be glad to connect you or give you more anecdotes or anything for that. That actually is, it's not a mental hospital, but yeah, there is a conversation about that.
Further questions? Streaming, okay.
Okay, we've got a double parter. So firstly, how easy is it to create a ryokan, maybe cost-wise or logistically? And then secondly, regarding the goat weeding idea,
okay,
who or what would use the goats for weed abatement? In California, we use it for fire breaks.
Nice. Great question. Ryokan can be surprisingly affordable. I've worked with them in between usually 60 to 300 million yen or so. But like everything realistic, it depends. So some of them are kind of like M&A plays. Others are, there's just a family that can't handle it anymore. So
and they take a lot of work if they're cheap, probably, right?
Yeah. So but again, it's kind of like I was speaking earlier. Okay, if that's your concept, we need to figure out. Don't just buy it and then figure it out. Know that what you're doing is actually a smart idea instead of just assuming. What was the goat question again?
Who or what would use the goats for weed abatement? Because in California, they use it for fire breaks.
Right. So it's just that there's any number of overgrown farmlands that the single owner of it is, for whatever reason, incapable. And it's probably just too big, let's be honest. They've got too much land that they're not using. And over time, it just gets extremely wild. And so straight up, it's just throw the goats on it for a year and let them eat it. And then now you have clean farmland that you can start using, like the projects that started this presentation off with.
I want to buy goat cheese in the store in Tokyo. They don't have it.
Not yet, but yes, that is definitely on my. Yeah, exactly. They're already there.
Goat curry, yum. Any other questions in the room?
Some in the stream as well.
More in the stream? Oh, go for it.
Yeah. So again, about the ryokans, how can they be licensed? As I heard, it's hard to follow the regulations to qualify as a ryokan.
Well, if it's an M&A, then you're just going to inherit that. So that's one of the advantages of it.
Okay.
Like if you want to start a new ryokan, then yeah, you're going to have to go through all of that stuff. But depending on the negotiations, if it's an existing business that you're acquiring the license of, that it ought to be a relatively cut and dry kind of process.
M&A, question mark?
Oh, sorry, merger and acquisition.
Yeah.
So like acquiring a company.
Okay.
Right, further questions in the room? Further questions in the stream? Yes?
I got a question. I just bought a property, mountain land, in Itoshima.
All right.
It's near a waterfall.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good eye.
I got some ideas, but I do want to brainstorm that's probably better for a one-on-one.
Yep, I agree.
Biggest question is, can goats eat bamboo roots?
You know, that's not a bad question because goats will, like, you will be surprised. If you have not seen a goat eat anything, it'll eat it. But bamboo is also one heck of a root. So, yeah, like bamboo versus goat. Like, I don't know who would win. That being said,
It should be streamed. For sure.
In Florida, I use diesel to kill bamboo.
yeah. But yeah, if you have the waterfall over in Itoshima, great area, I'd be happy to discuss.
All right, last call for questions.
Where is the salt mine? You have any salt?
It's in my bag.
I want to buy the,
Oh,
like 30
Okay, wait, check this out. Okay. Last comment. So there's a lot of different sea salt production processes. It's this really crazy thing, but everybody just thinks it's salt, so they don't use it. But if you put it on vegetables and some water, and then they make pickles, and it's fun and all that stuff. But so there's a lot of different producers. Obviously, they all kind of have their brand stories. Most of them aren't all that interesting, but there's one out on Izuoshima, and I brought this salt today, as well as the pickles that I made with it. They only harvest it by the light of a full moon. Supposedly, I haven't seen them do this, but
Smelly salt, what is fake, even Himalayan salt now is 75% spray with that pink paint.
oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That's it. This is the real deal.
It says you cooking water,
Yeah.
Himalayan salt, and this white, the pink format.
Just comes up.
This is
Yeah. All right, great. I brought actual just the raw salt, but also the pickles that I've made with it. So yeah, cool.
All right.
vodka. You have pickles and salt.
That too.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank
He'll
you.
be here all day, as they say.
All week.
So yeah, don't be shy to hit him up. Thank you. Going to.